The traffic moves fast along Poinsett Highway, with drivers too busy to notice a piece of the past. These snapshots are images of another time. The memories they represent live on in the dreams of two old friends.
We would always come out here to Dreamland to swim.
Dottie Beckwith and Rip Turner still remember the days they spent at the Dreamland amusement park in the 1930s and 40s.
Of course, Rip Turner was one of my good buddies. Dated my best girlfriend, but he was a handsome lifeguard.
Hundreds of teens from nearby mill villages came to the park to roller skate, dance, and
it was a good place to park and smooch.
Growing up came fast in 1941 with the attack on Pearl Harbor. Soldiers stationed at Donaldson Air Force Base often visited Dreamland, making Rip's job hard.
A little 17-year-old trying to tell some fella that's got, looks like a bear, got hair all over, and look, you got to cut it out, or we're going to throw you out.
The death of an owner and the war slowed down park activities. Things never really picked up again, but the memories remain.
They had a bunch of picnic tables.
That's right.
And that's where people would come to have their picnics.
Those memories fuel the passion for a Dreamland documentary now in the works.
It's been a touchstone to get back to my own roots and kind of pay homage to this generation in a way.
The generation that fell in love with Dreamland is a generation of survivors. They made it through some of the nation's toughest times. And while they accept change, sometimes the hardest thing to see is the visual reminders like this Lowe's that now sits where the Dreamland golf course once did.
It bothers me because I think, oh dear, all of the good places are disappearing.
Maybe out of sight.
Well, a lot of good memories.
But not out of mind. Kelly Coakley, WYFF News 4 Greenville.
Everything begins with dreams. Greenville, South Carolina began with a dream from the falls, the Reedy River Falls, where mills are run by water power. More people came to take in the sights just as they do today. In the days before the Civil War, Greenville was a place of small industry and a vacation spot for those on the coast hoping to escape the heat and mosquito-driven summers. With the death of the Old South, a new one arose from the ashes. Although here cotton was still king, only its kingdom was not the plantation, but rather the textile mills. The textile center of the world she became. Spreading out in a crescent around the city, mill villages arose and Main Street was the focus of commerce, just as it is today. In the mills, the workers slaved in heat and toil, watched over by the fraternity of owners. Unity arose in such names as Judson, Dunning, and Brandon. Allegiance to the cause. Schools and company stores and baseball teams. Shoeless Joe rounding third. August nights at Dreamland Lake, the allure of water, an escape from the grind. Catch a trolley, put your penny in, Dreamland nights of music sweet. Days of fun by the willow trees, before the mill whistle blew again. My research at Dreamland, the park, served the needs of many of the villages in Greenville. What could you tell us about these mill villages? How did they develop?
Well, they started early on. The ones that were the source for all of Dreamland's patrons were primarily developed after 1895, and they formed eventually a crescent around the entire western edge of Greenville, starting with American Spinning and Poe Mill, Union Bleachery, Monaghan, Woodside, Brandon, Deneen, Judson, and then Mills Mill. Those were the big ones. And as they developed, they all, of course, started out with mill villages because they had to have a place nearby for people to come. No one had automobiles. So they had mill villages which expanded over the years. In the early 1920s, from about 1922 to 24, early 25, was a time when the mills really flourished, and all of them expanded their mill villages.
Seeking
Recreation. Now, in the mill villages themselves, there were recreational facilities. There were YMCA's, there were swimming pools in many. At Poe Mill, at Monaghan, there were they had basketball and gymnasiums. On the other hand, they also did not have air conditioning, and in the summertime, it could be really, really hot. So one of the things that you have is an expanding mill population, rapidly expanding in the 1920s. You have no facilities for cooling, really. The mills themselves were very hot. Was a little bit more, how shall I put it, romantic.
I hate to get up at midnight. Daddy's calling me. I wake up to see a storm's flashing light. Walk the wooden planks out to the dam. Muddy waters wash out, and then it seems I just have to do it again.
Take the Poinsett Highway through Park Place, where the fairgrounds once stood, where caddies came to carry the clubs of doctors and lawyers on the Dreamland golf course, who during the Depression made more money than their fathers. Out past Cherrydale to the Peddler, which was once the home place of the Floyds. The stone house built by Thomas Franklin with his black worker Remy in the 20s. Joe Floyd is the keeper of dreams. His family owned and operated the park, and he is a living touchstone to the Dreamland story. A World War II veteran, Joe is a man of grace whose memories and passion for this special place is contagious.
And I tell you one thing I've learned is your family's Dreamland was a very special place to a lot of people around here.
Yeah, I agree.
I met a gentleman in Anderson, talked to him, and he got very emotional about the place.
Oh, is that right?
He said, you know, Dreamland is kind of like the love of my life.
Yeah, well, I was born in Greenville here in 1926, and my grandfather was born and raised on Masonboro Sound in northeastern North Carolina. He was a store owner and a farmer, and so then they moved to Greenville here, and he found this place, and he'd always wanted to have a swimming lake or amusement park or something like that, where that was what he wanted to do. So he found this place and settled on it. And the house here, so this was house he built for my grandmother. And that was in around 1919, it was after the First War. Well, my daddy was Carl Floyd, and my mother was Maud Lomax Floyd. She hated that name, but that's what they gave her. And but anyway, she I had, let's see, I have four. There was four of us kids. Daddy was the oldest of his family, and my sister was the oldest in my family, and her name was Maud Lomax too. And she really hated the thing. And then I had my brother Pete, who is, he's 5 years older than me. And then my brother Bill, who is 8 years younger than I am.
Your knowledge, when your grandfather began Dreamland, he started it?
Yeah, it was farmland.
So did he start the Dreamland? Was that begun in his mind as an amusement area? Did he always have a liking for that type of thing?
He had a desire when he got here and started studying this place. He had a desire to have an amusement center, and so that's what it ended up. We had an 18-hole golf course, and had the swimming lake, and then we had bowling alleys, had a miniature golf course on the other hill next to our house.
You had two lakes. You had
well, we had
lake where there was a swimming.
The big lake, which was the swimming lake, and then there were two lakes above that, and these were what we call settling lakes. We brought the water in all the way across the golf course in a flume.
The lake was in operation.
Well, the lake was in operation, and he was in, and they spent, the girls, 5 girls, spent the whole summer out here in the tent. Of course, they had the house in Greenville, but they spent the whole summer out here in that tent, and they had a ball.
Dreamland was an oasis during the Depression. People sought refuge and escape from their cares. Movie attendance rose as darkened theaters gave light. Silliness was a comfort, pole sitters rocking in the heavens. Marathon dancers swayed to the languid beat of sadness. And people laughed as a means of forfeiting their blues. Babe Ruth's majestic shots touched the collective nerves of those seeking home. Music was central and formed the soundtrack of hope. The only thing they had to fear was fear itself. At Dreamland, fears were laid to rest as the bands played at the foot of Paris Mountain.
Can you tell us, I know at one time we'd spoken about the pavilion as far as the dance floor, and it burnt down.
Yeah.
Do you may know why it burnt down? It just, what happened?
I never did hear why or how it burned. Maybe a careless match or maybe a deliberate match, I don't really know. At that time, there were a lot of people that didn't like dancing, mm-hmm. and didn't like the swimming, didn't like anything, you know.
Didn't want anybody to have any fun at all.
Yeah. Well, now, you know, there was a guy here, if I can remember his name, he was an evangelist, and I thought I'd never forget his name. But he used to come every Sunday, and he'd park up at the top of the hill right there in front of the clubhouse right off, you know, just on the side of the highway. And he had these big old blaring speakers, you know, and he'd sit up there all afternoon on Sunday afternoon. He'd holler over them speakers. He'd say, "Don't go down to that old hell hole."
Oh, and then y'all couldn't do anything about it? Couldn't
Nothing
run
you
him
could
out?
do.